like by this point, we all know that Ron DeSantis is constructed like Oscar from Sesame Street, but these anti-LGBTQ bills are not just popping up in Florida, they're popping up all over the country, and these politicians love pretending like these things are not going to do a whole lot of damage.
Don't play with me. Don't play with me. Don't play with me.
I'll talk about Ron DeSantis in a little bit, but first from USA Today. Transgender Americans could face a historic year of legislation that will further erode their rights as advocates brace for roughly 280 proposals in state houses across the country aimed at some of the most vulnerable members of the LGBTQ community. The Human Rights Campaign, in its State Equality Index scorecard, says state legislatures last year sought more measures than ever before that specifically targeted the transgender community across a range of issues. While 2020 saw 79 different anti-trans measures dealing with education to athletics and healthcare to bathroom access, in 2021, that count nearly doubled with 147 proposals aimed at transgender Americans. This one is from NBC. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis voiced his support for a bill that would prohibit the discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity in the state's primary schools. This is what he said. Schools need to be teaching kids to read and write. They need to teach them science and history. We need more civics and understanding of the US Constitution, what makes our country unique, all those basic stuff. The larger issue with all of this is that parents must have a seat at the table when it comes to what's going on in their schools. So of course, the supporters of this bill, and it's called the Parental Rights in Education Bill. But the critics are calling it Don't Say Gay, the Don't Say Gay bill. The proponents of the bill are arguing that discussions about LGBTQ plus issues are not age appropriate for students. And following the governor's comments, a nearly identical state Senate version of the bill passed Florida's Senate Education Committee on Tuesday along party lines. But of course, the critics are saying that this bill could be detrimental to the mental health of the state's LGBTQ plus children and teachers, preventing them from openly talking about themselves and their families. So remember, one of the last videos I was talking about something similar to this, but I was saying that a lot of homophobic people try to hide behind like, what about the children? What about the children? Never mind the fact that, you know, LGBTQ children be feeling fucked up and depressed, feeling trapped, feeling suicidal in homophobic, fucked up, queerphobic spaces. Never mind that fact. So what they're saying is that kids are too young to learn about LGBTQ people. They're too young to learn about these things. Their minds can't handle talking about these issues, or the fact that, like I said, the fact that these people exist. We can start there. These people exist. They deserve to be here just like everybody else, right? Something simple like that. But the thing is that these people who are hiding behind these, oh my God, my kids can handle it. They actually believe that LGBT people don't deserve to be here. You know what I mean? So instead of just saying that, they hide behind the kids. So they're saying that these kids are too young to learn about that, but they don't pay attention to the fact that kids just as young as that, LGBT kids just as young as that, are experiencing queerphobia and wanting to end their lives because of it. When you act like a whole group of people, a whole population of people, of kids or whatever, doesn't exist or shouldn't exist, or you don't want to talk about the fact that these things are here, that coupled with the violent queerphobia in this fucking society leads to higher rates of fucking suicide. That's it. That's it. And that's what the research says. This next part comes from a combination of the Trevor Project and Medical News Today. They say that suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people. That actually comes from the CDC, with LGBTQ youth being 4 times more likely to seriously consider suicide, to make a plan for suicide, and to attempt suicide than their peers. The Trevor Project estimates that at least one LGBTQ youth between the ages of 13 to 24 attempts suicide every 45 seconds in the United States. The Trevor Project also did a survey of 35,000 respondents between October and December 2020 and published their findings, I think, in 2021. And I think this is important. They said it's the most diverse survey that they've done yet, with 45% being LGBTQ youth of color and 38% being transgender or non-binary. The results of it say that 42% had seriously considered attempting suicide in the last year. This included more than half of the transgender and non-binary respondents. 12% of white respondents said that they attempted suicide in the past year, whereas Black and multiracial youth had both attempted suicide at nearly twice the rate, at 21%. I thought this was interesting too. While only 10% of the youth population identifies as LGBTQ, they make up between 40 to 50% of the unhoused youth population, of the total unhoused youth population. Also important, they found that LGBTQ acceptance, especially in the household, cuts suicide rates in half. The National Alliance on Mental Illness says lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth are more than twice as likely to report experiencing persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness than their heterosexual peers. Transgender youth face further disparities as they are twice as likely to experience depressive symptoms, seriously consider suicide, and attempt suicide compared to cisgender, lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and questioning youth. Many in the LGBTQ community face discrimination, prejudice, denial of civil and human rights, harassment, and family rejection, which can lead to new or worsened symptoms, particularly for those with intersecting racial or socioeconomic identity. The Guardian said this about, but this was from the UK, that said, cut off from support networks and often facing tension at home, young LGBT people suffered more than most during lockdowns. The Human Rights Campaign said, sadly, 2021 has seen at least 54 transgender or gender non-conforming people fatally shot or killed by other violent means. In 2020, the HRC tracked a record number of violent fatalities against transgender and non-conforming people. A total of 44 fatalities were tracked by HRC, marking 2020 as the most violent year on record since HRC began tracking these crimes in 2013. So I know that was a lot of reading, but I feel like there was no other way for me to get like that research. I just had to read that shit. So it's like when you see all of that, you hear all of that information, you see that the research is showing that if LGBT people, if LGBT youth are in spaces that affirm them, are in spaces that use their pronouns, are in spaces that don't make them feel ostracized, you see that something like that will cut suicide rates in half. You see already what they're dealing with. I mean, you're seeing that even though LGBT youth make up 10% of the youth population, they make up 40 to 50% of homeless youth. You see that they're more likely to experience mental issues if they also have to face discrimination, and that's compounded if you're at the intersection of shit, Black and also gay. It's like you see all of that, and then you have the nerve as politicians, ignoring all that fucking research, you have the nerve to get up here and try and stamp out whatever remains in these school systems, or whatever is in these school systems. And that's how these conservatives get off on like this fear-mongering shit. It's not even a whole lot of resources and shit in these fucking schools, in public schools and shit for LGBT people. So it's just like you stamping shit out that honestly a lot of shit ain't even in there. But with these bills, it's preventative. It's preventative because you see all these motherfuckers talking. You hear they have louder voices than they did in the past. You're just like, bitch, let's nip that shit in the bud right now. You know what I mean? And then I feel like even if some of these bills are failing, the Republicans know that they coming into power next fucking election terms and shit. They know that shit. They just laying the groundwork. And these are the very same people claiming to be pro-life. And it's like, these kids are dying. These kids are dying. A lot of these youth are unhoused. They are experiencing perpetual hopelessness and sadness. And it's just like, damn, you think kids can't fucking understand that shit? You don't think teaching that shit that I just said in this fucking video, you don't think teaching that shit, you don't think kids can understand, you don't think children can understand that basic concept of, oh my gosh, people are being treated like shit in this society, and because of that, it's contributing to their mental problem, their mental issues. Like, you don't think they can understand that shit. And it's just like, it's bills like that, it's legislation like this, that Ron Desantis and the rest of them, these bitches are like, it's bills like this, laws like legislation like this, that will continue to exacerbate the problem. This is research from 2020, 2021. You see what I'm saying? If these bills, these legislation, this shit gets implemented for real, what you think the number's gonna look like in 2022? to claim, like, to literally push out, it's like the double speak, to push out these narratives, to push out this legislation, to push out support for these fucked up ass bills, and to frame it like, oh my gosh, I just care about the well-being of the kids. I just care about this, the parents and shit. Just teach. I just care about the well-being. No, you don't, because the research is already showing you that the more fucked up bills and stripping of civil rights and exclusion, all that shit, the more that shit happens, the more you will damage these kids. That's what the research is showing. So it's like, it can't be for kids' well-being. And I wish that these people would just be fucking honest. Just be on, you're homophobic, you're queerphobic. Yeah, just say that shit. Just say that shit, because we can see right through it. Instead of just saying, hey, I don't think queer is natural, and therefore I don't think kids should see that shit at all. And I'm gonna pretend like queer kids don't exist because, their brains are so small they can't fucking handle it. It's the same straight people who talk about, oh my God, look at his little wife, look at his little girlfriend. When these children are holding hands, bitch, they don't even know nothing about that shit that y'all talking about. But y'all will push that shit on their ass. But meanwhile, these queer kids are literally suffering, and y'all just want, nothing to see here, nothing, they can't handle it, bitch. They are handling it. And how they handle it, how these queer kids handle this shit, is up to y'all. If you want to see them keeling over and fucking dying, then continue on the path that y'all going. Continue on the path that y'all going. But you cannot claim pro-life, you cannot claim to care about kids and the well-being and their minds. Oh my gosh, you can't claim to care about that shit when the research is showing that the shit that you're doing is literally contributing to their deaths, to their sadness, to their hopelessness, contributing to their plight. So it's like, get out of my face with that bullshit. Ron DeSantis is gonna get dragged every chance I get, just like the rest of these tired ass, ugly ass, nasty ass politicians. Anyway, on that note, I love y'all so much. If you'd like to hear me talk, make sure you check out my Patreon at patreon.com/AdrianExpression. Make sure that you enjoy the rest of your week. And unless your name is Ron DeSantis, make sure that you have a good goddamn evening.